Hey guys, it's M, and today I wanted to do something a little different and add on to a review I did in the past, Space Marines 2. A lot of things have changed with this game from then to now, and my understanding of its mechanics is a lot deeper than it was back then. So I'm going to be talking a bit deeper on some things I didn't fully understand back then.
Carry a big gun and never miss.
While there isn't too much more to say on this front, my main point about this from a year ago was it's very good in pretty much every aspect, but very short. Now we have a few more operation missions that, as I said before, help flesh out this world and its characters. Something I hadn't mentioned before was the Thalassa group. While Titus and friends are nice, I'd say Thalassa just has a bit more. From Straubin being quiet and focused, to Decimus angrily shouting at everything, it's nice to see the moments in between where the characters just speak to each other mid-mission. It kind of reminds me of Zombie Army and how those characters would constantly banter and have lines for multiple scenarios together. And while the voice pack thing is a bit of a mess all things considered, I do like hearing these champions from other groups speak. Before it was always glory for Ultramar, despite the fact you could be playing a non-Ultramarine. It's something for those who wanted that fan service, and I think it's great.
Today, we add new verses to our sagas.
For starters, all the bugs I mentioned in that video don't occur anymore, at least on PlayStation. Wanted to jump in front of that point first just to give the team their prompts. But as for the only 6 missions on Operations Point, I can happily say that's now doubled and there's 12. And every mission that's been added has its own unique aspects. Things like Trigon Prime, the Vortex Beast, etc. We also got Siege Mode, which just flat out wasn't a feature on launch. You have a healthy bit to play around with here. Sure, you'll do repeats eventually, but it's better than it was back then. Past Me also pointed out how playing the game even on hard felt brutal at times. I've now beat the entire game on lethal, if not absolute, on multiple occasions, and it shows how far the skill curve can go. One thing I find super interesting and fun is despite how many enemies they may add, they don't do any mid-move mix-ups or hit an Elden Ring buffer mid-string to throw you off. Once you know the enemy's moveset, they stay consistent. When you've played enough of this game and noticed that, the challenge becomes dealing with these clumps of enemies while they all attack you at the same time and knowing when to do what action. It leads to the game constantly feeling very rewarding to get down pat. Let me give you a perfect example with the Ravener. Raveners are annoying little semi-special enemies that have a 3-hit combo when they get close to you. These 3 hits come out fast, so if you have a balanced weapon, it's very hard to contend with it to get a parry off. However, you can parry, dodge, and then parry again, and you'll be able to land 2 gun strikes off of 1 interaction due to the way they're coded. It's made so the reticle appears a moment or so after the parry goes through, so if you act fast enough, the reticle for your last parry or evade wouldn't have formed yet, letting you do 2 consecutively. There's a lot of small enemy flurries that you can do this with, and it's become one of my favorite things to do on higher health enemies. And due to the amazing feedback this game has with parries and gun strikes, it never gets old. Seeing your character potentially land 3 gun strikes in sequence always feels great when you can do it. This kind of thing becomes very apparent with the melee bosses like Carnifex or the Hellbrute. While I don't have the Carnifex down packed yet, the Hellbrute has a lot of attacks that hit twice, one semi-soon after the other. In scenarios when your entire team is around, he can swap targets mid-string, which is neat, but if he tries to hit you with both, you can parry one and instead of doing what your instincts probably scream at you to do and immediately gun strike, if you wait his second attack through, then get both, you can really grind his health bar down. And given the ways Hellbrutes can spice things up with unblockables, it led to them going from one of my least favorite enemies that I thought was super unfair to my favorite overall. But speaking of endgame and endgame progression, we have to talk about the stratagems and that new endgame content they added with accolades. I love it. Once you understand the game, the standard missions even on absolute can become too easy. With the variables added through the stratagems, it turns into a very difficult but rewarding thing to do week by week. My only complaint is there isn't as much incentive to do the dailies. Yes, you do still get the accolades, which let you get exclusive rewards to the stratagems, but you're doing the same amount of work you would for the weekly for a significantly reduced reward. Maybe if you had a sweat group, you wouldn't mind doing these on top of the weekly, but as someone without said sweat group, I can't really see it. But anyways, with those said accolades, you gain a lot of unlocks that can't be obtained otherwise. Heroic weapons immediately come to mind. They aren't straight up better than the base final level of weapons, as stat-wise they tend tend to be on par. However, the unique perks will often push someone to getting them, as they will change up your playstyle. The heroic power fist, for instance, has a weaker charge attack but stronger light attacks. It also makes it so if you do a finisher, you can do a gun strike on a nearby enemy. That makes these things fun to grind for. As for cosmetics, there's a lot of drip here to get as well. Some of the cooler and my favorite non-DLC fits come from this, so overall, it's a very fun endgame rabbit hole to dive into. All of this talk before the newer content. Before I end off, there's no way I couldn't mention the newer enemies that have been added since launch. The Biovore was one I wasn't super happy with. Them sitting back and just blasting shit at you pissed me off initially, but it promotes breaking up fights and targeting a key enemy, so nowadays I'd say I like them. Especially outside of Siege, it's never too bad to deal with them. Then we got these little floating chaos shield guys. They're a nice way to force the player to aim, at least sometimes, to break up melee. They slot into the more basic fodder role than the other enemies we're going to talk about, but I love the finishers on these guys. I mean, consistently some of the best animations in the game. And then last, there's the chaos spawn. These are probably the most controversial enemies, but me personally, I love them. They look disgusting with weird contorted bodies, spinning of something that came from the warp, and is pretty different in comparison to the other chaos units. The problem many have with them is their movesets, but I think those are great too. They can lunge at you and they seem erratic, but like the other enemies, they aren't going out of their way to add any BS random moves into the mix. They kind of remind me of Ludwig or the Bloodstained Beast from Bloodborne. These guys seem unpredictable at first, but after getting used to them, there's a clear method to what they're doing. Also, again, like I said for the shield guys, they have some of my favorite finisher animations in the game.
We are the war machines of the Emperor. Efficient, deadly, and unyielding.
This isn't a point I brought up at all in my last review, and it's just because I hadn't touched PvP at the time, but it's very fun and very underrated in my opinion. All the classes function like their story counterparts, not their PvE counterparts, meaning movement classes like Assault and Vanguard can get very creative on the field. But before you go thinking this makes them OP or oppressive, everyone can fill their roles here. They can change the way fights are going in an instant. Bulwark Banner makes it so your guys are way tankier to deal with. Heavy's Iron Halo can pretty much shut down all ranged aggression. Tactical scans can reveal anybody through walls. Everybody has their role here, and the kill time is very fast. It works great for how chaotic fights can be. You can also regenerate your health if you stay outside of combat for long enough. It helps the game mode keep this quick tempo. A simple but great addition here is the Heretic Astartes. They have amazing designs in my opinion. Better than some of the endgame PvE fits. And the fact that they all have unique voice lines, including their own unique voice wheel, is really impressive. Even the Tech Marine, who just got added, has fully unique Heretic lines. And I guess I should also mention Hellbrute Onslaught. It was a fairly random addition in my opinion, but don't take this as me saying it sucks or it's bad or anything. It's pretty fun to play as an evil dreadnought and just shred through every player who comes at you. My only disappointment with the mode is you don't have the warp strike they have in PvE, but balancing wise, that does make sense.
Valius, ready to serve.
This is the bonus stuff I wanted to get into, but I didn't know exactly where to fit. Tech Marine's fun. His kin and perks, especially after his rework, are really neat. But I really love his gun strike being activatable from his back gun. It's such a simple change to a core system, but it's unique and fun to play around with. While I haven't got to play him a ton, as people who will still insta-lock him quite frequently now, and I even got kicked for trying to pick him once, he's a great addition to the cast. Assault was a class I always felt was pretty underwhelming. He was fun, sure, but in comparison to some of the absolute shenanigans the others could get away with, and especially putting Assault in comparison to Vanguard, who was the other skirmish in-your-face kind of class, I just didn't pick him for a while. But after his rework, and all these years of just getting better at the game, he's without a doubt my favorite class right now. Some of the best movement in the game, as always, but on top of that, he feels like a powerhouse. Despite the fact he doesn't have a primary, if you give me a power fist, I feel like I could take on anything in this game with just him.
Serve the Emperor, for his will is indomitable.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to overly glaze it and pretend it's perfect. There have been some flubs here and there. A lot of players want certain weapons like the Lightning Claws or certain Astartes chapters, but after all this time and looking at what's here, I'd say I'm pretty content with the care this game's got since launch. It's a game I feel I'll always come back to time and time again just due to how solid its core is and how much I love this universe. But I feel I've said everything I need to. What do you guys think? As always, as long as you're respectful, I'm glad to discuss with you in the comments, and I've been M. And I am out.